So, hit pieces and the mainstream media. I always felt it was only a matter of time before they came for this platform and other incredible platforms that are being developed by lots of human beings that I know you respect. Some of them are regulars here on Outspoken. Father Calvin Robinson, for example. Some of the guys from the Lotus Eaters, Konstantin Kisin and Trigonometry, Nicholas Lasac. You know the sorts of people that I'm talking about. But I didn't necessarily expect the first mainstream media hit piece coming for Outspoken to come from a publication that I used to respect. A publication that you probably believe to be on the right of politics. But that's what happened over the weekend when the Daily Telegraph launched its first broadside, and I know there will be many coming, on, listen to it, I don't know whether I should be offended or delighted, the GB News outcasts who are taking the fight for the right onto YouTube. They said Britain's alt-right is aping the MAGA movement as it turns its back on traditional media. Now, my friend Megan Kelly, who really inspired what I do here on Outspoken, and she was such a big part of me having the confidence to go independent after what happened with me at GB News, she wrote to say, alt-right? Like, what? You've really lost the plot if you're describing someone like me as alt-right, when actually I share the views. You can look at the facts when it comes to the polling. I share the views of the vast majority of the British public. But what I want to do today, take you through this article, let you know why I think they've got it wrong, and this was a piece of propaganda, and then get the analysis of two people who are now operating in the independent media space, who I respect very much. Emma Kenny, like me, she has survived mainstream media cancellation and absolutely thrived with her new Emma Kenny True Crime YouTube channel. And Peter McElvenna, who's doing it himself amazingly as the host of the Hearts of Oak podcast, which is part of this ecosystem. So let me take you through it. And this was written, by the way, by a guy called James Warrington, who is the media and telecoms editor, recently promoted at the Daily Telegraph and unfortunately run in the Sunday Telegraph newspaper in print, edited by Alistair Heath, the columnist who I had a lot of respect for, but I'm going to say had and put it in the past tense now. So the article starts by talking about me and saying that my daily broadcast provides news and opinion with, quote, no spin, no bias, and no censorship, is not alone in moving to the YouTube platform. He has been joined by a number of other GB News presenters, as well as a wider group of alt-right figures attempting to wield power over Britain's right through their own media ventures. In many ways, the shift online is a facsimile of the step change in US media, where the alt-right has gained ground since Donald Trump's first administration. This has only accelerated, the Daily Telegraph reports, with his second term in office as close ally Elon Musk has used his ownership of X to turn the social media platform into a MAGA mouthpiece. Would-be British influencers are now trying to mimic the trend as they capitalize on what they view as dwindling trust in conventional media outlets. So let me pause there, because Emma Kenny, it's not that I view the fact that there is dwindling trust in conventional media outlets. It's the fact I know there is. And the Daily Telegraph actually ran a poll within this article amongst their own subscribers, because only their paid subscribers could vote, about whether they trusted the mainstream media like the Daily Telegraph or the new breed of independent media. It wasn't even close, Emma Kenny. 80% of their own subscribers said they had no trust in the mainstream media. Yet the Daily Telegraph, the whole tone of this article makes it clear they don't understand that.
Well, it's really good that you would-be influencers are having such an impact, isn't it? I mean, just know that you're nearly an influencer, but not really one. You're just a would-be one because you've not got Joe Rogan's populist vote at the moment because you've only just started. The reality is that I've always loved the Telegraph for lots of reasons because of the individuals who are brave in that particular paper and go against what a lot of the, shall we say, popular media is talking about. But this stings simply because you can feel where it's coming from. And it's coming from a place of arrogance and fear. And those two things together psychologically are pretty problematic because it creates cognitive dissonance, such as, well, I went to university and I studied very hard and I climbed the ranks in this paper and I got my break. And now people like an ordinary human being sat in their bedroom on a council estate might be more popular than me in 3 years' time. That's something that's really hard for people to bite into and to accept, but it's happening. It would be far better for them to have started that article acknowledging the fact that there is a new media. It's not an alt-right. I mean, I don't know why they didn't call you far-right because everybody seems to be quite okay with suggesting
Yes.
that
Well, I presume if it had been The Guardian, they would have. But because it was the Daily Telegraph, they had to sort of find another term. I mean, I will point out, by the way, Father Calvin Robinson used to be a columnist for the Daily Telegraph.
Exactly. I used to think I was left. So I don't know who I am anymore. I think that
Totally.
alt-right has become a new word for centrist. I think it's people who just have common sense logic, believe in a better world, a safer world, and essentially would like truth. I think that opinion pieces are really important. I think you can have whatever opinion you like, offend me as much as you like, but don't make it some academic narrative which suggests that even though everybody can see the absolute reality playing out in front of them, where people are turning to YouTube, where people are celebrating new creators, where people are watching things like trigonometry, which is just incredible, and actually really celebrating the fact that they have a level of trust there. It would be better to acknowledge that, and instead of saying, well, actually, what's happening is people still really trust the general media, which is basically what that article is saying. It's saying, yes, all this is happening, you're all seeing it, but hey, look into my eyes, not around the eyes, look into my eyes. You don't actually see any of this because actually the general media is the best. And it's like no one's buying it. So it would be far better to have that dialogue. I mean, with respect to that article, there ain't no bad publicity when it comes down to that. I'm sure a lot of people who didn't necessarily know your channel know your channel. So thanks very much for
Well,
all
yes,
of
yes. I mean,
it.
I'll obviously always take the publicity where I can get it. But Peter, what is interesting though is that I think they had to look really hard to try and make what I say on this channel and what people like Lawrence say sound extreme. Because actually, what we're saying will be in line with what Telegraph readers thinks. Let me just read you out some of it and then I'll get you to respond, Peter. So the guy writes, but for the GB News rejects and other alt-right figures, the move to social media reflects a desire to exert influence over the political right with viewpoints that would not be allowed on regulated TV. Wootton, who was also sacked as a columnist by the Daily Mail, yes I was, yes I'm proud of it, frequently launches personal attacks on Sir Keir Starmer and his wife. Well, I don't, as I've been very clear today. I launched attacks on Sir Keir Starmer. I'm honest about his wife, but I'm not attacking her. I actually feel deeply sorry for her. They then say he has criticised Farage's tack to the centre, suggesting he should take a harder line on Islam and called for some kind of union on the right. How extreme. Then they say on Reclaim the Media, Fox and Robinson similarly accused Farage of trying to appease Islam while branding the Reform leader the wokest politician in Westminster. In a monologue on trigonometry this week, Constantine Kissin, branded the trans debate quite possibly the most insane manifestation of woke ideology we've seen. Peter, not one of those lines that they point to are, I think, anything that a Daily Telegraph reader would oppose or disagree with.
Donna, you should launch a political party. That sounds like a great manifesto. I'll vote for you.
Never.
So please. No, but you read it and it is surprising where these attacks come from. And of course, the Telegraph and papers are not attacking Nigel Farage, and that is a concern, that he has become a darling of the media, just to refer back to the last story. But they call it alt-right, which is about what, white supremacism, or that you're can be defined by the color of your skin. This is a debate on immigration is about capacity. It's about accepting the culture where you are. This is not about color. So to me, that's nonsense. And that first phrase is designed to try and discredit you, Dan. But then they talk about your tirades. I have yet to see these angry rants they talk about. I mean, and Calvin, you certainly wouldn't get that from Calvin. You certainly wouldn't get that from Carl and the Lotus Eaters. I mean, maybe Lawrence might get a bit edgy at times, or might get a bit angry. But Dad, you're one of the most mild-mannered people, along with Calvin, that I've come across in media. And to say that you're spouting these hateful, aggressive statements in a tirade is utter nonsense. So I read it and think this doesn't connect with the person that I've got to know. And the Telegraph gives us the revelation that you found a home on YouTube, as if YouTube didn't exist before the 26th of April. I mean, have they no idea how the media works, how the alternative media works? And I think it's a desperation of the legacy media to hold on to their relevance, while people like you, Dan, and many others are taking that spotlight, and the public are looking elsewhere, and they're no longer interested in the legacy media that only exists for their rich backers or for their advertisers, or to be a tool of the government. And people have seen that, they've had enough of it. And to me, I read the Daily Mail because a bit of entertainment, and it's good to have an idea, but not because I believe it's truthful or honest. That's where I go, Dan, to watch you, to hear what you're putting out. But I do want to hear one of these angry tirades sometime. So maybe start your show, maybe tomorrow with Katie with that. I don't know.
Yes, and the thing is, they are sort of completely out of touch when it comes to YouTube. YouTube is now the biggest broadcaster in the world. It is where all political conversation and debate internationally is held. So the idea anymore that you're sort of on the fringes if you're not on mainstream television and you're on YouTube is just a joke. It's not true. I mean, Emma, I don't know about you, but personally, you couldn't pay me enough money in the world to go back to woke ITV or GB News and be controlled and be cucked and be told what I had to say and pretend to be woke and say that I like people who I don't. No way. I'm free. I am finally free. And my God, it feels good. But first, a 2024 study links caffeine to higher anxiety risk. Half of North Americans are sensitive to it, and 40 million Americans are diagnosed with anxiety. Coffee jitters fuel anxiety, yet it's the most used drug in the world. And I have to admit, I was trapped too. My thing was never coffee, actually. It was diet energy drinks. You know, that's how I got my caffeine hit. But they were evil. I would feel jittery and anxious, and then by the mid-afternoon, totally exhausted. Then I heard Andrew Huberman talking about theobromine found in chocolate, which provides a gentler, longer-lasting energy boost without the anxiety by improving blood flow, getting more oxygen and fuel to your brain and muscles. And that led me to Morning Bean by Verso, a brew with theobromine and all the good things in chocolate, along with antioxidants and electrolytes for all-day energy, hydration, and focus. Now, I have to say, I love my Morning Bean. I have it right here. And honestly, it's the taste which is amazing. Rich, chocolatey, smooth, great hot or cold, not like other coffee alternatives which can taste absolutely awful. It's genuinely a bit like having a McDonald's hot chocolate. It's that good. And on top of increasing energy, Morning Bean's ingredients have been shown to reduce stress, enhance mood, and balance blood sugar. Cocoa powders, drinks, and products are commonly contaminated with high levels of toxic heavy metals, but Verso conducts third-party testing on every batch to ensure they have pure, high-quality cocoa, prioritizing safety and high flavanol content. Since I started taking Morning Bean, I feel more focused with less energy crashes. I also like how it get my daily dose of superfoods from it. So if you're looking to replace your coffee or your second cup, you don't have to give it up altogether, you know. Give Morning Bean by Verso a try. Just click on the link in the description below or head on over to morning.ver.so/outspoken and use the coupon code outspoken. You will save 15% on your first order. Let me just repeat that address for you. morning.ver.so/outspoken, or you can just click on the link in the description box below. But now back to the show.
Oh, 100%. The liberation that you feel when you realize that actually none of that mattered, and those people you thought you were friends, genuinely thought you were friends with, just disappeared into the ether as they do, which is the complete opposite of what I would do. I'm a person who runs into the flames and protects people who are struggling, because that's what I've always
Yes,
believed
you
in.
do. And I love you for that.
But the same, and one of the things that was incredible for me about the new media, the alt media, the new burgeoning digital platforms was the thing that really resonated was you can't cancel people who care for you, and the public care. And again, what I'm going to say is the arrogance of the traditional media believing that somehow you can set up a channel and people are like following because they're like sheep. That's not what people are like. They're so discerning. The average human being is so discerning. They have multiple millions of channels to choose from. If they are choosing your channel, it's because they relate to you, they like your content, they believe that what you're saying is trustworthy, and that's where you grow your community. Listen, let me tell you, having worked on YouTube for a few years now, you have to have excellent content, you have to be authentic, you have to do your research, you have to try not to upset people on any level regarding what extremes they might fall into, because the truth is everybody's allowed opinions, sometimes they'll disagree with you. So you have to be able to be completely free and liberated in your content and the way you make it, but you also have to be very aware of how other people's feelings are affected by that. So the idea that you've just got this kind of group of right conservatives coming into your channel, or in my case, people who are voyeurs of crime, which again is just ludicrous. It's not. It's because people are discerning. They want intelligent conversation and debate. They want to learn new things, and they go where that feels them true.
And the thing about this platform is there is nowhere to hide. And
No.
the only people who succeed in this space are people who are authentic. And it doesn't matter if you're talking about news, or if you're talking about makeup, or if you're talking about lifestyle or food. That's why Meghan Markle's podcast is flopping, because there's absolutely no authenticity with her. And what was interesting, this story went on to quote a media analyst called Alex de Groot. And my God, it was actually Bev Turner, who is one of the few people at GB News who I respect, because I think she is a freedom fighter and she stood by me. And she pointed out that this guy just doesn't get it, because listen to this. They write, as a result, de Groot argues that there is room in the UK media landscape for right-wing personalities to escape their current niche and break out into the mainstream. And they quote him as saying, the rest is politics and the news agents are successful podcasts and clearly partisan on the left. There is a gap in the market, but the offerings need to be more muscular to attract younger guys. And it's like, Peter, they don't understand, do they? I have broken out of the mainstream, and there would be absolutely no way I would ever choose to go back to that environment. But they just cannot understand it, because they will only ever understand a highly controlled, overly regulated space, which gives power to a very small group of people rather than power to the people.
No, exactly. This is a mindset that is being broken by the new media. And it also says here, after being ejected from the airwaves, these figures have joined a small but vocal group of online influencers attempting to influence right-wing British politics. This is, again, it's that mocking tone, that ridiculing tone. You're not a small but vocal group. You are the individual that people go to, Dan, and many others. Lotus Eaters is the podcast that people go to for info, and this is destroying the legacy media, and this is the concern. And at the top, they said you're aping MAGA movement. Well, that's exactly what we need: a movement that is patriotic, that cares about things impacting our citizens, and isn't interested in the world. And that's why President Trump has been successful in America. And we need a similar movement here that puts the UK first, and pulls up the drawbridge and begins to address the problems we have here in our own country, instead of giving hotels out and 5-year contracts to people who come in boats. Actually, let's care about our veterans and those who've fallen on hard times in the UK. So we need a complete reversal of the role of the state, of the role of the government. And Dan, if what you're doing means that we have a MAGA thinking here, but make Britain great again, then bring it on. That's exactly what we need.
I love the fact that they look at America and they almost are trying to say it's bad what happened there, but this is all about control, and they don't want to lose that control. I want to give a shout out actually to the Conservative and Reformer Post, which is one of the other really sound independent political organisations run by a brilliant woman called Claire Bullivant, who is also behind the Great British Pack. And she responded to the Telegraph article brilliantly. And I just want to share it with you because, well, not only because she was so kind to Outspoken, and I so appreciate that, but I really, really believe her words. So this is what Claire wrote in response to the Daily Telegraph. Telegraph, what were you thinking? You ran a hit piece on Britain's most engaging, honest and profitable media voices, Dan Wootton, Calvin Robinson, Lawrence Fox and friends, only to be humiliated by your own readers, 80% of whom said they trust them over you. Let's be clear. We are living through nothing short of a media revolution, a reformation, a righteous mutiny aboard the creaking ship of state-broadcasted pap. And at the helm, many of the so-called outcasts of the MSM, now our modern-day pamphleteers, liberated from the greasy grip of state subsidies and corporate strings. The alternative media isn't the future, it's already the present. Dan Wootton's Outspoken is racking up over 130 million views on YouTube alone. That's not just a number, it's a clarion call to the crumbling establishment. That's more eyeballs than many legacy publications see in a decade. While the BBC is burning taxpayer money like a bonfire of unwanted Christmas jumpers and its viewership is aging faster than a ripe Stilton in the sun, Dan, Lawrence and Calvin are lean, hungry and crucially profitable. Yes, profitable, a word that certain MSM outlets might wish to Google. Meanwhile, the BBC continues to exist in a time warp where enforced license fees still masquerade as public good. She then says GB News, and I agree with her, is a missed opportunity. Claire says it's a noble and brilliant idea, but dare I say it, perhaps being done in by a weak knees and bit of a corporate cowardice. Once hailed as the last redoubt of free speech, it's now starting to resemble the final season of a Netflix show you only keep watching out of habit. It's such a shame, as they had so many firebrands on the payroll, but then sacked the likes of Dan, Calvin and Lawrence for saying spicy things on air, on a free speech network. Let's be honest, it's GB News' loss. Their tally of fallen warriors is actually staggering. Dan Wootton, Mark Stein, Andrew Neil, Calvin Robinson, Mark Dolan, Mercy Muroki, Lawrence Fox, Simon McCoy, Darren McCaffrey, Colin Brazier, Alex Phillips, Liam Halligan, the list goes on, reading like a who's who of stellar brave British contrarianism. But maybe these Lionhearts weren't cancelled at all, maybe they were liberated, and we're all the better for it. And then from the Conservative and Reformer Post, a final word to the establishment. You had your moment. For decades, you monopolised the narrative, dictated the discourse, and told the public what to think, wrapped in the illusion of impartiality. But the jig is up. You tried to silence Dan Wootton, he's louder, freer, and more profitable than ever. You mocked Lawrence Fox, he's laughing back with a platform you can't control. You dismissed Calvin Robinson, he now commands audiences BBC3 would auction its soul to attract. We're done looking to the BBC Sky or The Guardian to answers. We're tuning into Dan, to Carl, to Calvin, to Maya, to an ever-growing legion of truth-tellers who speak boldly, think freely, and most importantly, don't ask for permission. People have spoken. They're not watching the news. They're watching YouTube. Video killed the MSM star, and the algorithm buried the body. And I couldn't put it better myself. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go wherever you are.